The outgoing week was a week of mixed feelings for some of the political parties in Nigeria. While others rejoiced, others were in lamentation following the Court of Appeal's judgment on the governorship and National Assembly elections. The two major political parties were most affected as some lost their seats and the others retained it. The focus this morning will be on the Court of Appeal's judgment on the governorship election. The appeal court in Abuja sacked the Kano State Governor Abba Kabir Yusuf of New Nigeria People's Party, the NNPP, and his Plateau State counterpart, Governor Caleb Mutfwang of the PDP, and affirmed Bala Muhammad's election of Bauchi State. Let's not forget, the court also declared Zamfara polls inconclusive, others a rerun in 3 local government areas, thereby affecting the election of Dauda Lawal of Zamfara State. Now, to discuss this judgment, we have Barrister Mutiwa Kinsaya, where we'll be talking about these states differently in order to dissect his thoughts on the matter. Good morning, Barrister. Thank you for joining us.
Good morning. Thank you for having me.
All right. Let's start with what happened in Kano State. I mean, it started with Kano, the reaction, the mixed feelings. How is your take on the entire judgment and how it happened, from the tribunal sacking it and the appeal replicating the judgment, and even to the extent of blaming the tribunal for letting him get to that point of coming to appeal, because they should have dismissed the case, according to the appeal?
Yes, I think for Kanu, it was expected. The decision of the Court of Appeal was expected. You will find that before the Court of Appeal, there was an appeal by NNPP and its candidates, and there was also a cross appeal by APC and its candidates. Luckily for the APC candidates, the cross appeal was allowed, and then the appeal of NNPP, unfortunately for NNPP, was dismissed. You'll recall that before the tribunal, the only advantage that the APC and its candidate had was that the votes of the NNPP candidate was deducted. But the tribunal said that he was qualified to contest that election. So that his membership of NNPP was not in question, because according to the tribunal, it was a pre-election matter. But the Court of Appeal, on its own side, said no, it wasn't a pre-election matter. That by virtue of Section 134 of the Electoral Act, the qualification of a candidate can be challenged before the tribunal, and that the APC and its candidate were right to have challenged the membership of Abba Kabir Yusuf of the NNPP, and that the court ought to look into that. And the Court of Appeal, in its finding, found that as at the time his name was submitted, he was not qualified. He was not a member of that political party. Because again, Section 177 sub C of the Constitution states categorically that a candidate must be a member of a political party and must also be sponsored by that political party. So that as at the time his name was submitted, he was not on the list of membership of NNPP. So that cross appeal by the candidate of the APC sailed through before the Court of Appeal. And the Court of Appeal again upheld the position of the tribunal, nullifying those votes belonging to the PDP candidates. So what it means is that it even came worst off for Abba Kabir Yusuf at the Court of Appeal. And going to the Supreme Court now, he will have to deal with those two issues. So the Supreme Court will have to give its final stand on the issue of his qualification and on the issue of the votes that were deducted from the votes that he got according to INEC at the election.
Some of the issues raised by the court was that with respect to the council votes, where that those votes were not signed by the electoral umpire, INEC. And, I tend to think, at what point did we realize this, happened, and that we went ahead to declare him as winner of that election, regardless of, the processes and all that. At what point was it realized? And then why didn't INEC at that point take a decision?
Okay, you see, when court deals with issues, the court will always deal with issues that are before it. The evidence that parties bring before it. You know that the judges there will not deal with any issue that is outside the issue that parties will submit before them. They won't also deal with evidence outside the evidence that parties submit before them. So judges, for instance, will not say, oh, because I was present when these things happened, I should assume that that was the position. It is what these parties will bring before the judges that the judges will use to give their decisions. So if a judge sits in a court and you bring a document to him purporting to be a ballot paper, and the judge does not find any signature or anything showing that that ballot paper emanates from INEC, what the judge will ordinarily do is to say, perhaps these ballot papers were brought from somewhere, if he doesn't have the stamp of INEC. And
but then who should take responsibility? I'm talking about our electoral process now.
Yeah.
Who should take responsibility? Is it on the part of the political party NNPP, or is it on the part of the electoral umpire INEC? Aside from the court own position now.
So what you need to understand in Kanu is that the APC and its candidates complained against INEC and then the NNPP, right? So before the tribunal, NNPP and INEC were on one side. NNPP itself was not complaining about those ballot papers. They were not complaining about the fact that they were not signed. They were not complaining about the fact that nothing on it shows that this was these were ballot papers or documents that had the backing of INEC. So that complaint was a complaint that was made by the APC and its candidates. And because they made that complaint, the court then will then look at it and say, oh, other ballots, for instance, where the votes were not cancelled, they bore the signature of INEC. But what's wrong with these ones? That they didn't have the same signatures or the same authentication that INEC gave to those ones. The presumption that will be raised at that point is that these ballot papers may have emanated from somewhere and not from INEC. Except if the contrary can be shown that no, it emanated from INEC. But maybe something happened along the way. That was why they were not able to put their stamp or their signature on it.
All right, Barrister Mutu, let me hamp on exactly what Ayuba asked earlier. Now we know that something is wrong, and the INEC are not coming out to say that, okay, this is exactly what happened, that the stamp was not there on the ballot paper. But then the courts now are saying that definitely something is wrong. This is considered electoral fraud. So who should take responsibility? Shouldn't the electoral umpire be, prosecuted for this particular crime?
So what it means is that maybe certain people must have done certain things to compromise the electoral system at that point. And you know that INEC also has the powers to also prosecute electoral offenders. So at this point, and what the parties that is suffering from this should be pushing for is that those maybe INEC staff or ad hoc staff that ought to do what they should do, or whosoever was found wanting in that process, that these people should be prosecuted. And if NNPP are taking this up, for instance, before even the matter got to the tribunal, or side by side the time that this matter was heard at the tribunal, they can bring this as evidence to say, oh, this was what happened, and we saw this, but we also pushed that these people should be prosecuted. And that we have a petition, for instance, before INEC to say, oh, this and this was done. And they can bring that evidence before the tribunal. But in this particular case, this was not done. So what it means, even to the judges of the Court of Appeal and even the tribunal, was that NNPP was satisfied with the status of the ballot papers as they were. They had no issues with it. They didn't complain about it. The only person that is complaining about it is the candidate of the APC. So for them, they're cool with it. They have no issues with it. But on the face of it, when the court looked at it, it said this does not bear the stamp of INEC. And this cannot be presumed to have emanated from INEC.
So could it be then there could have been some from within the NNPP, perhaps some people decided to, fabricate some, ballot paper from elsewhere? Who knows? Just like we've seen the fabrication of results in some places in Kogi.
So that's the presumption, and until that is rebutted before the courts, that will be the presumption of the judges. They will presume that since it does not bear the stamp of INEC, it may have been from a marketplace or from a printing press somewhere. So anybody could have been responsible for those ballot papers, but not from INEC, except the contrary can be proved.
Really, crazy situation. We'll have to wait to see what happens.
It's quite surprising, really, because the Kano election is one victory that was, applauded by many people and commended. People felt, for the ruling party to lose an election in a state like Kano, then the process this time around must have been follow through. It must have been free and fair. And so you hear those commendations. So with this judgment now, it seems that all of that confidence that people had on the process in Kano seems to be very flawed then.
Yeah. So the lesson here for me is that we must also practice what we preach. In law, we say he who comes to equity must come with clean hands. Internal party democracy is also very critical to our democratic structure. So a party that is bringing a candidate for a general election must have also done its own homework. It is not INEC that does the internal democracy for these parties. So if you say, for instance, where you have members of a political party, and overnight you just brought somebody who is not on the list of membership, and you just brought the person into the political party, and the person gets the ticket, and you didn't follow all of the ground rules.
Barrister, sometimes some of these technicalities is something that many Nigerians cannot even comprehend, because these are the similar cases that we had in a case of the former president of the Senate, for instance, Ahmed Lawan, where he didn't partake in a primary election, yet we saw the court certify that he was a true winner of an election that he didn't participate in a primary. So, when things like this happen, you just tend to think, what exactly is going on here?
Yeah. So the issues here, like I've always said, is about what the parties will bring before the courts, right? It is what you submit before I'm not saying these judges are angels. Yes, they also have their flaws, and some of these judgments that you're speaking about, it is not all of those judgments that I will agree with. But you see in this Kanu case, and that's why I say going forward, and I think one of the reasons why you see the Court of Appeal even towing the part it is towing in some of these judgments, is to also send a strong signal to these political parties that it's not going to be business as usual. If you're coming for a general election, you must also ensure that democracy that you're clamoring for in the general election, that you also ensure that it is also in place in your own political party.
Okay, I want us to talk about Plateau State. We have our reporter there who would like to get across to him shortly. But first, let me start with the issue of the recent judgment, the last judgment by the appeal court. Would you describe this as a self-inflicted loss, if you like, going by all the arguments that have been made about the state party, of the PDP not having a Congress that is considered legitimate and so on?
Yes, of course it is a self-inflicted injury, no doubt about that. And you know that our courts are very, very jealous of whatever order they give. Any court anywhere, if a court gives an order and that order is disrespected, if that party comes before the court, even if not that exact court, maybe another court, that court would not be very happy by the fact that, oh, an order was given earlier on, you refuse to follow that order or to obey that order.
But how is it? But at the tribunal,
yeah,
this same case scaled through. I mean, there was no issue. Nobody raised the issue of the Congress at the tribunal.
No, it was raised. State. It was raised at the
yeah, but
tribunal.
the judges didn't feel that there was anything wrong there.
Exactly. According to the judges before the tribunal, they said it was a pre-election matter. But you know that, for instance, the former governor, who also contested for the Senate seat in Plateau State, it was also the same ground that he used before the tribunal, and he got judgment at the tribunal, and that tribunal judgment was also affirmed at the Court of Appeal. And what you will find in Plateau State now is that, yes, the candidates of the People's Democratic Party across the state, they won by majority of lawful votes cast. And what you will find out is that those who are challenging their election are not even saying that, oh, they didn't win by majority of lawful votes. What they're saying is that as at the time that the election was held, or that the election held, they were not qualified to be candidates at the election because they were not validly sponsored by a political party. In other words, that those who were responsible for sponsoring them as the leaders of the PDP at that time were sitting on nothing. They were not even leaders of the political party. Because, of course, the High Court in Plateau State gave a judgment to say your world congresses, your local government congresses, and state congresses that were conducted were illegally done. So go and repeat them and get new leaders at world level, at local government level, and at the state level. But they refused. In other words, those who are the leaders of the world, of the congresses, of the world congresses, the local government congresses, and the state congresses, as at the time that Caleb Mafwang was nominated, were themselves illegal. So you can't put something on nothing and expect it to stand. It's a principle of law.
Nigerians are still a bit confused on that one. But yeah, we have our reporter, Ado Musa, from Jos in Plateau State. Ado Musa, good morning.
Good morning.
Yes, thank you for joining us this morning. So tell us, what is happening currently in Plateau State? What are the both parties saying about the judgment of the appeal court?
Well, there has been a kind of misreaction between the two major political parties, that is the APC and the PDP. The APC supporters have been celebrating, and they have been saying that the judgment was right and it is a victory for democracy, while the supporters of the PDP are not happy and they are saying that the judgment was not right. So this is what has been happening between the supporters of the two major political parties. Some appear to be in a very good mood, but some are not. So this is the situation between the supporters of the two political parties.
So, as of now, what is the People's Democratic Party saying in the state? You know, the court is basing its judgment on the fact that there were parallel congresses that took place in Plateau State, and that the party officials that nominated, or if you like, that presented Caleb Mutfwang as the presidential, as the flag bearer of the party, was an illegitimate, setup. So what are they saying in that regards?
Yes, at the moment, the party has not come out officially to say something or to issue any statement with regard to the judgment. But the governor, through his director of press and public affairs, Mr. Gamberi, issued a statement immediately after the judgment. And what the statement carries has been that he's calling on the supporters of the PDP to remain calm, and he described the judgment as a temporary setback, which he believes that if he goes to the Supreme Court, his mandate will be regained again. So this is the position of the governor, but the party has not come out to say anything yet.
So what about the APC in Plateau State and the person, the candidate of the APC, Nentawe Yilwada? What are they saying about this victory?
Yeah, the APC is the APC and the APC candidate. They have come out to appreciated what the appeal court has passed with regard to the judgment. For example, the APC publicity secretary has come out to issue a statement, also calling on their supporters to come out in mass to celebrate the victory, even though so that they should not do anything that will at least probably provoke the other party. But on the whole, the PDP, the APC, and their governorship candidate have welcomed the verdict given by the appeal court, and they are calling on their supporters to come out in their numbers today, that is to celebrate the judgment given by the appeal court.
Are you sensing any tension in Plateau State?
Well, one cannot completely say there has been no any tension because of the presence of security personnel. Since yesterday, there has been security personnel, including soldiers and police, stationed at strategic places, right from Secretariat Junction down to Maraban Jama'a. Even this morning, I spoke to a driver who also confirmed to me that they have seen soldiers who have been watching over the areas, who have been watching over the movement of people, just to ensure that there's no breakdown of law and order. So we can see that, yes, the presence of security signifies that there is this fear that possibly there may be a kind of protest by maybe a particular group, or rather, maybe during a celebration, there will be a kind of disagreement between the supporters of the two political parties. Mm-hmm. So we can say that, yes, there is tension, only that up to this moment, one cannot conclude that, yes, this is what is going to happen. Oh. And I think that is the essence of allowing the security personnel to remain at those strategic areas since yesterday.
Okay. All right. Thank you so much, Ado Musa, for that update. We would continue to keep tab on what's happening in Plateau and the Jos, the state capital.
Thank you very much, Rani.
All right. Well, Barrister, you've heard him. What are the lessons for politicians here in terms of following the procedures?
Yeah.
Should we be looking up to INEC to ensure that parties follow through these processes, or the political parties themselves? I mean, how do we ensure that we don't see this plethora of cases in courts? Because this time we seem to have quite a high number of cases in courts after the elections and so on. And it goes back to the issue of the processes and so on.
Yes, I think what's important is that political parties must also play by the rules that they have set for themselves, or by the rules that INEC has set for them. It is not INEC that screen the candidates. It's the political parties themselves that screen these candidates. So if you find that your candidate does not meet the requirements as provided, for instance, under Section 177 of the Constitution, you immediately disqualify that candidate and get another person from the pool of your members to fill that particular seat. So political parties must do what they should do. In the case of Kano, for instance, yes. In the case of Plateau, political parties must also respect court orders, even if they feel differently about it. If the court gives an order or a judgment, it takes nothing from them to immediately obey that order, because that's the foundation. It's like a building. If the foundation is faulty, and then you build 100-story building, the building will collapse overnight. And that's exactly what we're seeing here. No matter how beautiful the structure is, if the foundation is faulty, the entire building will come down. And that's what, as citizens, at this point in time, we should...
But there's always this interest, this conflict of interest that always, comes in and you find that there's a clash. You find new people coming into political parties, and all the people that were there, and rightfully so, really, if you think about it, certain political parties are sort of nowhere on the map, politically speaking, and then, because of how we tie so much to individuals, in our political culture in Nigeria, it's always around individuals, and then they come into parties, and then everybody looks up to them, and then it has to be their way.
So that's the shift we need at this point. Political parties should be based on ideas and ideologies, and those ideologies must be respected. So political party is not about one man, it's not about one person. It's about the pool of, or a group of people who have come together, who will then pull their ideas together to provide solution to our collective problem as a country. So for me, I honestly think that these political parties should not blame INEC. They should not blame the judiciary. What they should do at this point is to sober reflect and look internally to ensure that when there's another round of election, that these kind of mistakes they make do not repeat itself. This is not the first time. In 2019, we saw what happened in Zamfara when APC decided to also toe this part. The entire seats, House of Assembly, the National Assembly, and the governorship, they lost the entire seats, even though they had majority of lawful votes cast at the general election. But because they also did not also follow the rules that they ought to follow, all of those seats were lost.
So at this point, it's like our politicians need to go back to the book of politics to learn more about the laws. Okay, right now we have Barrister Sanusi Liman, the son, that will be joining us via phone call to briefly talk about this situation. Thank you so much for joining us, Barrister. Are you with us, Barrister Sanusi? Okay.
Hello.
Okay, thank you. Good morning, and thank you for joining us. Barrister, can you take us through your thoughts on the judgment of the Court of Appeal, on Plateau State, Kano State, and also we saw what is happening or we are seeing rather what is happening in Zamfara State. What's your take on all of that? All right, I think we lost Barrister Sanusi on that. Let's come back to the studio. Now, Barrister Mutiu, let's go to Zamfara State also. We saw, the law coming out to say that there has been some inconsistency in about 3 local governments, and they need it to be rerun. They need to have a rerun in that state. And right now, there's a panic of what is happening, where some people are feeling that the ruling party are attacking some particular states, because it seems most people have the other opposition party are always having to contend with the ruling party. So what is your take on what's happening in Zamfara State?
Okay, I think in Zamfara State the situation is again from a completely different dimension, and I think the lawyers who represented the APC and Motawale before the Court of Appeal, they took a clue from the decision of the Supreme Court and the Court of Appeal in the presidential election, where the court held that the IREF portal is not meant for collation. It is simply meant for viewing the polling unit results. And what they were able to show was that the collation that was done in Bukuyum, in Maradun, and the third local government, yes, that all of those collations were not manually done, that they were done using the IREF portal. Whereas in all of the other local governments, it was a manual collation. So they simply attacked that process and said that was not a transparent process that would show that it was the result that came out from those local governments that were the correct result. And of course, they will have also compared that with...
that a collation, results were uploaded to the IREF. Does it invalidate those results because it is on the IREF? And then secondly, didn't we say that INEC is at liberty to choose the method of, transmission of results and,
So what they did, of course, was to show the inconsistencies that were, the inconsistencies between the results that they had manually and what was uploaded on the IREV. So, and of course, if the court sees that inconsistency, the court will have to say, no, you can't do your collation from there. And that flowed, like I said, if you remember what the Court of Appeal said in the Presidential Election Tribunal, and that was affirmed by the Supreme Court. It was completely clear.
So it's about the inconsistency of the results.
Of the results. Of course,
between
they will have shown
the manual and the one uploaded on the IREV.
Yes, of course. And they will have shown that, oh, you can't be doing manual collation for other local governments and you decide to do IREV collation for this local government. Even if you want to collect.
So is it the inconsistency in the numbers or is it in the process? Exactly what I was talking about.
Of course, in the process and in the numbers. In the process and in the numbers. And that's simply the reason why the Court of Appeal had to then look at it and say, no, you must conduct elections again in these local governments. So we can then remove.
Okay, so let's go to Sanusi Liman, SAN. Thank you so much for joining us on Daybreak this morning, to talk about this.
Thank you very much. My name is Sanusi Liman.
Okay, apologies for that. All right, now let's get your take. I mean, quite a lot has happened. Several states, we've seen that the appeal court in several states have given their judgments. Plateau, Zamfara, we're talking about Bauchi and the others. But some states stand out. Let's start with the last one in Plateau. What's your take on the judgment issued yesterday in Plateau State?
Well, as a lawyer, I have no any take other than to accept what the court says at the position of the law. Because I have no virus to sit on appeal on the judgment of the court. But I don't think there's anything new. This is a principle that has been established long ago. You remember in 2019, APC refused to abide by court orders, by primary, and that was how APC lost the entire state, even though the majority of the people of the state voted for the party. I remember in 2020, I think Bayelsa said to refuse to follow according to the code. It has favored a deputy gubernatorial candidate to the election. So. What we are saying is the court are now rising to be the bastion of democracy. They are the ones to protect democracy. Politicians and political parties must now realize that there are rules and regulations. They cannot continue to do things the way they want.
But SA and the ordinary Nigerians do not necessarily see it that way. I mean, for the majority of people who feel that the judgment didn't go in their way, they are just feeling that, look, there's something suspicious going on somewhere. They do not necessarily think that the judiciary is now the one protecting democracy in Nigeria. As far as they are concerned, the judgment does not reflect, what they voted for. If you go to Plateau now, I'm sure a lot of people will feel that way, considering the fact that the PDP won the majority of the lawful votes in the state. So how do we get, people, Nigerians, to really understand some of these technicalities?
That's what I'm telling you. It is your responsibility as a media house. The ordinary people are there. Your duty is to enlighten them. So you have a duty in this democracy. You are called the fourth essence of the ring. So you have a duty to question the process the political parties are following, to enlighten the public that it is wrong for political parties that want to govern to refuse to follow the law. And it is, like I told you, it happened in Zamfara. The governor of Zamfara that was voted by APC had about 800,000 votes. The PDP governor that was given had about only 100,000 votes. If something happened in Bayelsa for APC. So it's not something new, but what we are saying, look, the foundation for us to have a better country is for us to have leaders who will lead by example. And you only produce leaders by the Constitution of Nigeria through political parties. So if political parties in the process of producing leaders who will lead the country, who you want them to operate your constitution, they will do as they wish, flouting the rules and regulations of the party, flouting the constitutional provision, flouting the electoral act. And you think that those people will come and lead you by the rules of the constitution? Certainly no.
By taking the mandate now and handing it over to the next person, the second position in that election, some people will feel that, look, you are stealing our mandate, you know, and so isn't there? Let me finish, sir. Isn't there other ways to deal with this? Why don't we say, okay, perhaps the election should be cancelled and then another election should be conducted instead of taking the mandate that belongs to someone else and handing it over to...
But you have representatives in the National Assembly. Tell them to amend the Electoral Act and the Constitution to provide for that. The courts are courts of law. They are not courts of sentiment. They follow what the law says. So, because the doctrine is as if that party had never presented a candidate. So, what is that? So, it's for them. If that is what people want, they should impress on the members of the National Assembly to amend the Electoral Act and provide for that. Simple. There is nothing to...
some Nigerians are of the opinion that now the courts are the one making the election, decisions. Some of them are saying, okay, at this point, we shouldn't even come out and vote. So don't you think that the court should be in the best position to handle pre-election matters in order for us not to get to this point where after people have voted, they now feel as though their mandates has been stolen from them?
I don't understand. I don't understand the profession.
Okay, like I said, some Nigerians are saying that the courts are now the one deciding, judiciary is now the one deciding who emerged the winner of the election. And so Nigerians are feeling that they've been robbed because they go out and then vote for a candidate, and they thought that the INEC will be the one making the final decision, the final calculation of what happened. But then right now, everything, because we've seen about 4 states going to the court, and then the decisions, most of them are turning out differently than expected. So don't you think, as a senior advocate of Nigeria, that it would be best to handle this matter before the election? Because majority of the reasons that the appeal courts are coming out to say that these people are not qualified, it's something that is a pre-election matter that should have been done earlier.
Who made it pre-election matter? Please, let us understand things. And you see, I don't like when media houses take the isolated cases and forget what happened in the larger picture. We had electing 360 members of the House of Reps, 109 senators, and different number of the state houses of assembly went into about 400 of them all. Now, how many of them were removed? And many of them have gone to court. Even if you check at the litigation that went to court, how many of them were removed? So you want the court to close their eyes to the refusal to follow the law because of some few Nigerians who say that they have not done the right thing?
No, what was saying?
What is pre-election? Nobody asks you. What are you calling pre-election? The Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria and the Electoral Act clearly made a ground of challenging an election to be one of them, somebody who is not qualified to contest the election at the time of the election. Can you contest?
Okay.
Can you challenge somebody before the election that is not qualified to contest the election for election that has not been conducted?
All right, well, okay, Asian, we'll come back to the studio. Just be on standby. We'll come back to you. Let me get another thought here from Mutiu. You know, this court judgment seems like a punishment to the political parties right now. That's what it seems like, you know. And in my mind, I'm just thinking, isn't there another way? So is there option to say, I mean, perhaps it's not the current arrangement in our electoral, laws, but then isn't it possible to say, okay, if the court feels that a particular candidate does not satisfy, the requirements by law, instead of, disqualifying that candidate and the entire party, why don't we say the party produce another, candidate that will take the votes and take the mandate instead of, the party losing everything?
So if you look at our laws does not provide for that. And that's exactly what the learned seal just said, that whatever the court will decide based on the law that we have applicable presently. Presently, for instance, the position of the Electoral Act is that INEC will not do screening of candidates or any political party. It is the political parties that will screen these candidates and then submit those names to INEC. So if the political parties fail to do what they should do, when the punishment comes, they will have to take the punishment and not INEC. So the law does not envisage a situation where because you submitted the one name and it then turns out that that person is not qualified, it will have to go to the next person. So the party, nowhere in the law, as a law provided that the party can then bring a substitute.
Yeah, I know that we don't have such provision now.
Yeah, the provision is that
which is what I mentioned earlier. But then, in your legal opinion, don't you think that perhaps we should be looking in this direction so that people don't feel, the National lost Assembly, out completely?
And that's why you say the people who would think that way all have our representatives at the National Assembly. So if they think it's the way to go, they can sit today and say, come on, we want to amend this to look this way. There used to be a time in this country when INEC was responsible for screening candidates and not political parties. But the political parties themselves at the point in time started agitating that that's a power that has been taken away from them. And at the point in time, the law was amended to give them that power and say, no problem, screen your candidates. It was the National Assembly that did it. It was not me, it wasn't you. So the National Assembly is also very powerful. But the judiciary will always interpret what the National Assembly has passed as law. And they can't do otherwise. They can't make the laws and then interpret.
Okay.
All right, let's go back to Barrister Sanusi Musa Hassan. How do you think the judgments that happened will influence the future electoral disputes in Nigeria?
Okay. First of all, let me just make a quick response to what I think is illogical. If you said that when it is found that a particular candidate is not optimized through the legal means, that some party should be given another chance to produce another person.
Okay.
I don't think that is quite logical, because the party that has not done primary election, are you now telling the party to go and do primary election after the election to produce a candidate? It doesn't even make sense, honestly. Well, on the issue of the judgment, I think what is that telling the court, the people, is for them to obey the court orders. I'm sure APC is the first state will never now repeat what they have done in 2019. Once the court gives an order, they will try to see that they follow it, because they know what they have suffered. And even APC, I don't think APC as in the nation will try and do anything to disobey court orders, because it has lost the first state, it has lost welfare state. So it's that way, when the political parties realize that the courts are there to enforce the law, because the courts are there to enforce the law. When the courts do their duty in enforcing the law, now you see that the politician will realize that it is normal business as usual. They will do things according to the law, and which is good for democracy. Because when democracy is played according to the rule, all of the better for all of us. We will have a better country. We will have legislators who respect the law. We will have governors and presidents who respect the law. Everybody will be happy once you put the political parties in a shape that they will ensure that they obey the law, not obey the whims and caprices of any particular party who think that he's the leader of the party and things should be done according to his own whims and caprices.
All right, I would like to get your take on the Zamfara State results, or the judgment from Zamfara State that we are seeing now, that is ordering for rerun in 3 local governments on account of discrepancies between IREV and the manual results in that state. Do you think that the IREV as we have it now, going by the judgment of the Supreme Court, is it really enhancing the electoral process or setting us back? Because going by some of the court injunctions, in one breath we hear that INEC says, well, we want to use this IREV to ensure transparency in the process and to enhance the process and so on, but in another breath it looks like it's now being used for different purposes and setting us back.
Honestly, I have not read the report about the judgment. I confess I'm ignorant about the judicial route, so I cannot comment on things that I don't know.
Okay. All right then. So, but what are the lessons? Before we let you go, you can round up by talking to us about the lessons for politicians and, INEC.
Yes,
what should we expect? What should we expect from INEC and also the political parties in the build-up to elections?
My worry is about lawyers. Lawyers who now sit on appeal on pages of newspaper and TV station. And like what I'm seeing, people talking about Kanu, saying all different lies about not knowing what happened there, when clearly what happened is there's an issue that there were ballot papers that were, there was ballot stuffing. The ballot papers were neither signed, stamped, and dated, and the court removed all those papers. And the APC, in its pleading, clearly said that the governor now is not qualified, was not qualified to contest the election at the time of the election, because at the time of the election he was not a member of NNPP, and NNPP admitted that by forwarding the name of the governor to INEC in April this year, after the petition has been filed. And all these things, people did not go and read what is there. They would just rush and condemn the court or start saying things that they don't know. So and saying that the court said it has no jurisdiction on issue of membership. Court has no jurisdiction to determine who is a member of a party, stricto sensu. Just like it has no jurisdiction to determine who is a member of any other association. But where somebody is fielded as a candidate and you cement his qualification to contest the election as provided by the Constitution, which one of them is being a member of a political party and sponsored by that political party, you can raise that and say that that person is not qualified to contest the election, because even though he has been educated up to secondary school level, the party that nominated him, he's not a member of that party. And this is not something new. In 2015, APC lost a seat in Gombe State House of National Assembly from Gombe State, because it was found that the person nominated by APC at the time of the election was indeed a member of PDP, not a member of APC, and he was removed from office. So we shouldn't be rushing to discuss a case that we do not understand the content or what the court says about it, including the media houses and some of my colleagues, the lawyers. Otherwise, we'll be misleading the people, and we have a responsibility, because this education we have, this knowledge we have, is a trust. We must enlighten the people to understand what the law is all about, not for us to mislead them. If we continue to mislead them, we are doing the service to our country. And once we set this country on fire because we don't like what the court did to do today, then certainly all of us may be found to be victim of what we are doing. So I pray we'll have some reasoning and do things according to the law. This is my prayer.
Thank you so much, Sanusi Musa SAN, for joining us this morning on, and of course sharing your own opinion. Thank you so much. All right, welcome back to the studio, Barrister Mutiu. Final word on what to expect, considering all these the parties that are feeling a bit down are going ahead into Supreme Court. So what should we expect?
I don't think we should expect anything different. Whatever the outcome is, I think we should accept whatever the outcome is. and we should encourage citizens to also accept whatever the outcome is. We cannot all be happy at the same time. All of the candidates cannot be satisfied with whatever comes from the judiciary, but we should submit to it, and we should wish whosoever emerge the best. Leadership is about support. It's not just about the people who emerge. We must all give them the necessary cooperation. Those of us who should speak to our followers should speak to them to accept whatever the decision is, so we can move on as a nation. It's part of the process. The judiciary or the judicial decisions are also part of the process. So we know that even after the general election, these matters will come before the judiciary, and the judiciary will have to make its pronouncement. So the judges are simply doing
but you know, just before
what they are authorized to do.
But just before you go, Barrister, you know, it just beats my imagination that, is it that the politicians or the political parties are ignorant of the law, or they do not know the implications of their actions, the consequences of their actions, yet they go ahead to do it? In some cases, you find that some of these, what do you call it, shortfall, they get through with it sometimes, in some cases. So is it like they are just trying, whichever way?
Yes, you see, in the past, some of these things that people are now pinpointing, in the past they do it and they go scot-free. And you will find that every political party, at the state level, at the national level, they have their legal advisors. And the reason why they have these legal advisors is to be able to call their attention to some of these things. In some cases, of course, the legal advisors will have called their attention to some of these things, but they feel no, we'll still go ahead. If they go ahead,
when we get to the bridge, we'll cross it.
We'll cross it, yes. But of course, the bridge will always be before the judicial officers, before the judges. And if they come before the judges, and the judges will look at the law. The judges will not give their decisions based on sentiments. They will look at the law, they will look at the facts. They're not the ones who made the laws. The laws were made by the National Assembly. Theirs is to interpret what the law has said, side by side the facts. So if it goes against anybody, they have to take it in good faith.
At the end of the day, if there is one lesson that Nigerians are taking from this, is rules and regulations must be followed. All right, thank you so much for your time, Barrister Akintayo Mutiu. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much for having me.
Of course.